Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alyssa. Today we are doing a video that talks about how to go gluten-free. I get a lot of questions about gluten-free living and my gluten-free diet, why I'm gluten-free, etc. So I wanted to share a video and put together kind of a resource for you to come back to if you are curious about this lifestyle, if you think maybe it is something that might work for you, and kind of how to make it happen and how to go gluten-free. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to start by talking about some of the benefits of a gluten-free diet, and I want to preface this section by telling you and reminding you that I am not a medical professional, and I recommend that if you have symptoms like I'm talking about or I'm about to talk about, then you talk to somebody who is a medical professional. First and foremost, I do also just want to say that the gluten-free diet is not necessarily right for everyone. If you are somebody that struggles with some of the common symptoms of gluten intolerance or you have celiac disease, obviously going gluten-free is something that could be tremendously beneficial to you. But if you aren't somebody who is suffering from some of the symptoms that we are about to talk about, I don't necessarily think that a gluten-free diet is necessarily the right thing for you to do. I would say that if you're trying to lose weight, or if you're just like looking to be healthier and you think that the gluten-free diet is the way to go, I would just say that instead of maybe going gluten-free, you should be focusing on eating whole, real foods. So we'll talk more about that in a second, but let's talk about some of the benefits of going on a gluten-free diet in case you are somebody that is struggling with maybe one of these chronic issues. So some of the areas where gluten intolerance can show up is gastrointestinal. That is definitely what happened with me. There was a lot of bloating, a lot of stomach aches. Basically, after everything I ate, I was uncomfortable. Other areas that gluten intolerances or celiac disease can show up is in migraines. If you're somebody that struggles a lot with migraines, that can definitely be something that is triggered by a gluten allergy, as well as some brain fog and chronic fatigue. So if you're kind of walking around and you're just like feeling like you're constantly in the daze, maybe you're just tired all the time, those can sometimes be indicators that you do have a gluten intolerance or a gluten allergy. So those are just some of the, like a handful of some of the symptoms. I would say those are kind of the more common symptoms of gluten intolerance and gluten allergy. So if you do fall in some of those buckets, then this could potentially be something that would be beneficial to you. Again, I'm not prescribing this type of diet, and I'm not necessarily saying that you should absolutely do this, but it might be something to consider if you are somebody that is eating a very gluten-full diet. So I would just recommend speaking to somebody that is a medical professional to kind of talk through some of those options. So all that being said, let's talk about how to actually go gluten-free and do it in a way that is sustainable and maintainable. So I have nine tips to kind of go through, and I feel like these are just like a progressional step kind of thing that you can follow. So you would kind of start at step 1 and work your way down through the list, and hopefully by the end you just feel comfortable with this way of eating and it's something that you can kind of maintain for the long run. So number 1 is to consider your symptoms. Again, this kind of ties back to what we were just talking about, but it's really important to understand that if you are somebody that is potentially sensitive or allergic to gluten, you are probably going to be having some symptoms. If you don't have any of those symptoms, then this isn't necessarily the right thing for you to do just for quote unquote health reasons. So consider your symptoms first, kind of go through those common ailments or symptoms that people have and see if you do resonate with one of them. If one of those kind of fits with how you're feeling, then move on to step number 2. It could be the next step to take. Number 2 is to take a food allergy or sensitivity test and or a test for celiac disease. I actually didn't personally do this, and I wish that I had, so that I could have actually ruled other things out as well. But that should help you understand if gluten is triggering some sort of response in your body. So once you kind of get your test done and you get a positive, maybe you don't get a positive and you're still feeling like you want to try this, then the first step I would say is to do a rejig or kind of a review of your pantry. And the way that I recommend doing this is literally pulling everything out of your pantry and your fridge and dividing them into piles of things that are naturally gluten-free and then things that are not gluten-free. So you'll have to be your own kind of label sleuth. You'll have to read all the labels. You have to look at the ingredients. You'll probably find that a lot of food is actually naturally gluten-free, but there are going to be kind of the more main categories, I guess you can say, of things that probably aren't gluten-free. So that could be pasta, bread, some sauces, maybe crackers, chips, sometimes cookies, kind of those bready type foods are usually not gluten-free. But most of the time there are a lot of pantry items or things you just have naturally on hand that might already be naturally gluten-free. So that is step number 3. Step number 4 is to make some simple swaps for those foods that are in the gluten-full pile. So luckily, now that we have kind of moved into this being a pretty common sensitivity or allergy that people struggle with, gluten-free products are pretty widely available across the globe. If you don't already know, I traveled in Europe for 4.5 months, and I really had no problem finding gluten-free food. So it is very widely available at this point, which is really great. So I would recommend going to the grocery store and making just 1-for-1 swaps with the foods that are in your gluten-full pile that you eat on a regular basis. Maybe that's pasta, maybe that's bread, maybe it's frozen pizza, whatever it is. Try to find gluten-free options at the grocery store. You can just swap those in and out. It makes it really nice and easy. You aren't really changing anything in your diet, and you are basically just replacing what you just had with something that is gluten-free. From there, I recommend once you start to get comfortable with these things, I recommend that you take step number 5, which is to restock your pantry. So now is a great time to start to understand what foods are maybe naturally gluten-free that you can stock your pantry with, whether it's new whole grains that you haven't tried, maybe it's gluten-free pastas, gluten-free breads, and just other foods that are naturally gluten-free. You want to kind of stock your pantry full of those items so that you can create really healthy meals with whatever you have on hand. So as long as you can kind of create this gluten-free kitchen, then you shouldn't have any issue if you're looking to create new meals. Step number 6 is to get into the kitchen and get cooking. I think that the best way for you to kind of get comfortable with this lifestyle is to really start exploring the new ways of cooking. That is kind of how I taught myself, and really actually why I started this blog was because I wanted to, or I was forced to really learn a new way of cooking, and I started to explore new ingredients and things that I absolutely fell in love with, quinoa being one of them. And I think that you will just get so much more out of this whole process if you start to really enjoy the process of cooking and using these ingredients that you might not normally have used in really creative and delicious ways. Also, you should look at just using recipes that are already available to you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are so many gluten-free blogs, mine being one of them, that have so many great options for you. If you are feeling stuck in the kitchen, just go to the internet and find some recipes that look delicious to you, and you can start kind of getting more inspiration, and you can start going from there. So the next step is to be your own label sleuth. You really with this type of diet have to read your labels. So you're gonna have to go to the grocery store, and every single food that you're thinking of picking up, you're gonna have to see if it's gluten-free. And this is really important because a lot of times foods are maybe hidden with gluten, like they might use vital wheat gluten in some vegan products, for example, or there's breadcrumbs hiding in something, or soy sauce in something that it's just not naturally gluten-free, even though it might look gluten-free. That will make sure that as you are browsing the grocery store aisles, picking up new foods or picking up other foods that you just love, you will be able to see what is and what isn't gluten-free. I think the cool thing about this is that you are really starting to understand what is going into your food, and I think that through this process it's going to help you be a little bit more critical, I guess you could say, with your ingredient lists, and you're going to kind of see that a lot of packaged foods are maybe full of ingredients that you didn't really realize or that you can't pronounce, that you might not want to ingest in general. So I'm hopeful that that's the side of this diet that could be really positive, is that you start to be a little bit more of a label detective and you see what's going into some of these foods. And then the second part of it that I think is really exciting and great is that there might be a lot of foods that you didn't even realize were gluten-free that you are still going to be able to enjoy and eat and love and all that stuff. So it might not be as big of a disruption to you as you think it is. And I just think that that is something that's going to help you feel really empowered, at least. Number 8 is to speak up. And this is the section where I wanted to kind of talk about going out, because I labeled it speak up because you also need to become your own advocate, especially if you are going out to eat. And thankfully, like I said, a lot of restaurants across the globe now they understand what gluten sensitivity and gluten allergies are. Not necessarily that they are celiac friendly, like they aren't necessarily certified gluten-free restaurants, although those do exist. But at the very least, a lot of them just understand what a gluten allergy is and what is and what isn't gluten-free. So you have to just speak up. You have to be your own advocate. If you are going out to eat, I would recommend calling ahead and just ask if there are gluten-free options on the menu. I would say 9 times out of 10, if not more, there are going to be options on the menu. And as soon as you sit down, talk to your server. So I usually pull the server aside and I just say hi, I have a few food allergies or food sensitivities. I'm just wondering if you could help me navigate the menu and share what you might think are gluten-free items. And they'll usually be really great and point things out on the menu. And if they can't make things gluten-free, sometimes the kitchen will even cook you something special. So that's happened to me numerous times where they're like, oh, we don't really have anything on the menu, but we'll have the chef just prepare something for you and we'll make sure that it's gluten-free. So you just have to speak up for yourself. You got to be your own advocate. And I promise that going out to eat is still doable and fun and delicious. And there are so many options that are naturally gluten-free that you can still have a social life and just enjoy going out to eat, which is great. And my last tip is to stick with it. I would say that you should give it at least a month, if not longer, where you are strictly gluten-free to really see the benefits. I personally saw the benefits within probably a week in how I was feeling, but it can take a little while. And also the longer you stick with it, the more the habit becomes just part of your lifestyle and just how you live your life. So stick with it for at minimum a month, and the more you do it, the longer you do it, the easier it's gonna get. And also the more you're gonna learn, which is really exciting. So you're gonna just continue to kind of understand this world of gluten-free eating and cooking and food, and you're just gonna feel more and more comfortable, and it's gonna become easier and easier to manage and maintain. So I feel like this video could go on and on and on because I have a lot to say. I did write a blog post that goes along with this that answers some of the questions that I got on Instagram. So whether it's my favorite bread, my favorite pasta, there's a lot of questions that people submitted. So I answered all of those in the blog post. I also detailed these steps a little bit more. I explained my personal journey on the gluten-free lifestyle, why I went gluten-free, and more. So if you're interested in kind of diving deeper, check out that post. And if you have additional questions, then please let me know in the comments. If you are not yet part of our community here on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe by clicking the red button that is right below this video. It says subscribe. And if you do enjoy these types of videos, then make sure to click that little bell. That will turn on your notifications and that will make sure that you never miss another video. Otherwise, again, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.